You know, part of my disdain in a lot of different ways about the religion thing was this. When I was exposed to some of the stories that make me really go to like the oh my god, this is some bullshit level, I at first wanted to be mad at family members and people who had stuck this in my life because I started looking back at going to a Lutheran school, having to memorize passages every day, spending like 45 minutes a day memorizing shit, and then thinking to myself, if I could have had that time back and used it for mathematics or, playing an instrument.
That's my point too. Like they could have missed your calculus years.
Yeah.
What scientists have now discovered is that although the brain is very plastic, the mind, now we realize that you can regrow brain cells. We used to think, burnouts and people who huff paint, once you kill those brain cells, they're gone forever. What we realize now is the brain can actually regenerate itself even out of Alzheimer's. And so anyway, it's fascinating new studies on how repairable and renewable our brain actually is. But what we have discovered is if you miss certain intelligences in certain times in your development, they will be lost forever. And that's like language, speech, like these feral children that are left. Their parents, in Russia, they just abandon the house, leave the kids behind. Sometimes 1, 2, 3-year-olds. They just leave this baby to die in the woods. And what happens is wolves, local street dogs, these kids, some kids have actually suckled on the dogs, like drunk the dog's milk along with the puppies to help living. And these kids, they start barking, they run around on all fours. And many of them have been found, and we try to rehab them and help them, but none of them are able to talk because they missed the time in the development of the brain when speech was forming. And if you miss it, then it's gone forever. You can't get it back. So I think the same thing must be true about other intelligent things that we pick up. And one of them, if it is mathematics or science, and which can get very complicated when you get into physics and quantum physics and all kinds of high-ended algebra, that if you don't start young, if your youth, and mine was the same way, if you're 5 years old to 12 years old, and the emphasis was on Jesus stories, those parents just fucked you. They left you at a disadvantage. Like all of those formative years when your brain could have easily picked up mathematical algorithms and understood how science works, and you can understand, biology and chemistry, and it was fresh and your brain was new. How many parents have wasted that time in their child's development on some bullshit, like you said, Travis, 45 minutes of remembering biblical passages.
We had passages to remember. We had memorized passages every day. We had passages to remember every day. And
I was good at it.
Yeah, I was really good at it.
And I had passages in my brain. My brain was filled of like passages and what meant what and all the numbers and the chapters and verses that went with it. Meanwhile, I get into, you get into junior high, and all of a sudden math is really difficult. And no one's really concentrated on math with you. And you're thinking, man, I'm not in the best class in math. How do these kids got it down? Right? They're tripping me out. I know I'm as smart as them, but man, they seem so far ahead of me because I think a lot of those kids had not had their mind wasted and its memory power wasted. Religious bullshit.
Wasted on religious. I totally, more and more I was in my head. I'm talking about like first, second grade. Memorizing passages.
When you could have been doing, you could have been learning, Galileo's theory.
I could be learning spelling.
Yeah, and so no, there is something to be said about that is quite awful, actually. That what we emphasize in a religious family can really ruin a child later on. It leaves them, if you cannot learn how to speak, if you miss the time to learn how to speak, well, then in that development, what else can be lost forever? Surely not just speech. If you don't get speech, that's the only thing that could be lost. To me, logically, it would seem if that's true, then what other things are lost in that developmental period?